There are lots of ways to explore outer space, but there's an inner world as well. So let's explore beyond light and sound and time and space. Join us as we listen in to an experienced inner naut. Get introduced to a new language to describe uncharted, inverted space. We enter through the portal of dreams.
Well, I think I might have dreamt in a way last night that I finally figured out why it is that no one can understand anything. It's because they only have the realms of perception. They veil the actual realms off that are all a part of them. But they only have realms of perception that deal within time and space. And time and space is an octave of in-breath and out-breath. It's a dumbed-down version of in-breath and out-breath because the deeper version of in-breath is going to your overallness. And the out-breath is coming down and creating something. Then the limited version of this time and space, the mindset of that and what we perceive and what we relate to, there is an octave of the overall, but it's only like 4%. And it's such a dumbed down version that we have no cognition of a reality in the 96%. And thus, as a consequence, when something is speaking of that or is relating to that, because we don't experience that, it doesn't make any sense. And we have to try to figure out how to write it down or to depict it in a way to fit some mindset, because that's all we know. We're lost in the mindset. And the mindset is a volleying that exists between sound and light, and we make fixes in relationship to that. You can make a fix that can last many lifetimes, maybe a couple of thousand years, but it's still very, very limited, very short-term oriented. Doesn't take into account the overall equation of the totality that is us. And as a consequence, if you look at yourself closely, you realize that there isn't anything that you're doing that isn't just trying to bicycle around a bit better. Or put lipstick on a pig, so to speak, in terms of the various conceptualizations, ideations of it in the atmosphere. We're causing this atmosphere with this time and space that we've dealt with, that worked with light and sound. It gets caught in the mindset. The time-space is an illusion. The mindsets that we've created, illusions upon illusions, or reflections upon reflections. You cannot maintain a manifestation that isn't trying to do temporal things. It's caught in time and space without having to continually throw states at it, various mindsets, very, very, very limited denials, bifurcation from the wholeness that we are. So to talk about something like this is almost ludicrous, because without the experience of it, you can't hear it. You have to put it into a mindset way in order to grasp it. And when you put it in a mindset way of grasping at it, you denude it, reduce it to something that has a temporal mannerism instead of the overall. You reduce it to something that makes sense within the schematics of time and space. And I'm finding it very interesting that one could go inside and understand the makeup of the cosmos from understanding something in terms of an overallness inside of oneself, and how that overallness works as the aliveness. You can know the cosmos from inside of yourself. You don't have to study it with instruments, this, that, and the other, and try to make it into some sort of mindset orientation. And yet, It's all we seem to know how to do. We can only function within this 4% of perceptivity, mindset perceptions. So you can look at this in terms of anything. You can look us up in this progressive versus somebody that's conservative, and they're just atmospheres. They each have a mindset that they function with. And that which is progressive is actually conservative on another level. And so on and so on and so on. As you expand from, say, sound to more light, it's just a parameter that wiggles around. You can actually get to a point like if you were to really look at something in a bigger schematic. Let's say you were talking to the Native American, where they had this connection at one point in time that even tuned to an alive, there was so much more. And now you're taking your find, the Native American, in a position where he's so veiled and beat down. He's really in a purgatory-like abomination of self. And so that deep down you feel bad and you want to rearrange the laws. In other words, justice then becomes a matter of maybe satisfying a guilt you hold latently inside. So that's where you get into the sloppiness of the mindset, where you even throw out the mindset from time to time in order to rationalize, to justify something based on an echo of an atmosphere that you can't catch up with, that is relevant in some other way, but it's way beyond your scope ability. See how this goes? You just stay all twisted up manufacturing projections, and then projections on projections and reorganizing and recognizing something deeper. So you make a projection upon that something deeper. You keep everything held in an orientation atmosphere that's bounded in the 4% as a mindset in time, space, outside of the overallness. And anyone who could operate outside of that isn't here, not in the sense we call here, because what we call here has to do with a mindset, a position, not a nothingness, not an overallness. We don't acknowledge that. We want to acknowledge that everyone has their differences of opinion, that there's no difference of opinion when it's all one. It's all without a totality of a knowingness and a wholeness. The difference of opinion comes from deviations. And yet, we go around with our Republican and our Democrat, with our various countries, various flags, all preaching and carrying on in some orientation, lifestyle choices of how to be, and think that's what it's all about. And if you talk other than that, that's crazy talk, because that's not within the realm of what a human being perceives. And that's why it's such a big problem to try and write something down that describes and portrays something, because it just bounces around in relationship to mindsets. Some can be better than others. That can affect something in the temporal for a little longer, but all of it runs its course. And just what is the course? Ancient Chinese used to identify with the vibration, an energetic, almost of an insightfulness, coming from the North Star, 330 light years away. Otherwise, what is time? What is time? What is that overallness that is outside of that we even at one point could reduce to this to time? And no, of course the Native Americans had it pruned down to more of the closer end planets, like Venus, the moon, and the sun. And when we have it reduced even denser, an aspect of time. And each reduction results in a farther and farther removal of ourselves in terms of this other part of ourself we have no idea whatsoever about, because 24/7 constantly is the bombardment of the 4%. That 4% is just a lower octave of the whole. It's 100% and we're only playing with the 4% octave of the whole and making that real. Oh my goodness, how silly can you get?
Listening In is a part of the Nameless podcast. Nameless, Evolution Begins Within, is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and all major platforms. Or go to our website, thenamelessshow.com, for more information. Copyright 2021 under Sophia Unity Foundation, where wisdom is one.